Well, what your wife thought you meant when you said I do. Come on in, you evil people slinking in here at the end right here. Come on in here, Joe. Tony. Let me give you a couple of things here about before you look at this. As you look at what your wife thought you meant, in the same way as you look at what your husband thought you meant, that couple of things, that you're looking at a standard that no one ever, in the light of marriage and marital requirements, ever comes to a point that they go, voila, I've done it. I'm arrived. Anybody come to that point where entire sanctification has occurred and you never have to struggle? And so it's a standard that you labor toward. And the reason it's good for a wife, when a husband knows this, the wife has hope. No wife ever thinks that she has married the perfect man. My wife at times has, for 20-second intervals will think that, all right? But no one has ever come to that place that the woman says, I've married the perfect man. And women don't expect the perfect man. What they would like is the perfectible man. That women need to know that there is hope. That the most frightening thing in the world for a woman is what is called a rogue male. Y'all know what a rogue male is? It's a man that wants the woman to submit to her, but he himself will submit to no one. All right? And in counseling circles, the worst thing that can happen in a marriage is what is called a rogue male that marries what is called a man-eater. All right? The man-eater is a woman that has always had problems with authority. She had problems with her father, her mother, had problems with the law, had problems with teachers. And now she's going to lift her eyes to a man and say that I will love, honor, and cherish and obey. And the fact is she won't. And what do you do when you got a rebellious wife? The Bible says she's like oil. She cannot be taken in hand. She is like the wind. Who can restrain her? What are you going to do if you got a wife? Here comes a couple right now in deep need. Don't sit in the back. There's no need. Just come on up here where I can see the evil in your eyes and see what you're doing. The woman won't come to the place of the honoring of her husband. So what are you going to do if you're a man? You're going to arm wrestle her, You're going to get out in the street and run wind sprints and loser has to submit, You're beaten. There's no way. And this is why men will, when they get a man-eater that will not, treat them with respect for their positions, that's why a man will go play softball 3 nights a week, okay? Or he'll go find a place where he'll go to the bar, at least some place where he gets acknowledged, but he'll get away from that home. A man won't fight for his home. Y'all know that? A man won't fight for his home. His wife is going to treat him with respect for who he is, and he's not going to have to compete day by day for that. And a rogue male is when a man will not submit to God, whereby God brings him to the place that he should be as a man. And whenever you get a rogue male and a man-eater together, boy, you got some major problems right there. But a woman that's when a woman gets nervous, is whenever she appeals to her husband and the man just blows it off. And she realizes, not only do I not have a perfect man, but I have an imperfectible man. And so now I have got to begin the process that only God can do, and that is to shape a man after his image. And that's when a woman gets real nervous. And she'll start trying to manipulate, or she'll start trying to challenge, she'll start trying to do everything she can. And that's when that thought goes through her mind, I have just made the biggest mistake that I could make in life. How am I going to change him? And you just can't do it. You can pout, you can do sex for good deeds if you're a good boy, and it won't work. And you come to that impasse in the house. And so this is the standard that a wife hopes that her husband will have and always be laboring toward, is what your wife thought you meant. When she said, have y'all discovered yet that y'all are different fundamentally? Ernie, Ann, have you figured that out yet? That she's not just a soft boy. Have you figured that out, Ernie? He's not just Ann, a real homely woman. Have you figured that out yet? That there's a fundamental difference in us. And this is what God calls a man to be. I'm going to give you 16 or 17 things. That's right. With women, there was only one. But here, on this one, there are like 17 things. So close the doors. Number one, a woman was thinking tenderness. As a matter of fact, if a man is tender, and when you're tender to your wife, it's like when you have a tenderness on your skin, that you're very sensitive to heat or cold or to pressure. Tenderness means that you're very aware, that you're not harsh, you're not cold, you're not unfeeling. That is what tenderness means. Husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way, as with a weaker vessel. The Greek, that's in 1 Peter. And actually the text says this in Greek. It says, husbands, live with your wives as unto knowledge, as with a weaker vessel. It says, men, wake up. This is not just a male. This is a female. She's altogether different from you. And so live with her. Wise up, I think is the Living Bible. Wise up. She's different. Don't expect for her to be like you or other males. Live with her in an understanding way as with a weaker vessel. Not a lesser vessel, but a weaker vessel. How do you handle Waterford crystal? How do you handle porcelain? How do you handle, what is it, the stuff the Japanese make out of paper? Origami. How do you handle that? You don't just grab it like a beacon's mover, all right? That you handle it in a gentle way. And that's what it means, that she's different from you. That there are times that, Ernie, that Ann will cry and you don't know why? Are there times that Ann will cry, Ernie, and she doesn't know why? Are there times that God doesn't know why and is crying? They're different, okay? As a matter of fact, Paul, that's Peter, what he says about it. Paul says to love her as you love your own body, for no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it. We're very sensitive to what our body needs. I need to eat this. I need to be cherished. Matter of fact, the word cherish is the word enthalmo, that we get the word thermometer from, and it's like a hen that covers her young with warmth. And so he says, you love her. Peter says you love her as porcelain. You be gentle with her. And Paul says you love her as your own body, that you be very, very sensitive. And so a woman wants to be spoken to in a certain way. She wants to be listened to in a certain way. She wants a man to be aware of her. That's what she wants. I want you, when you touch me, when you talk to me, I simply want you to love me. You're bigger than me. You're stronger than me. And so, in a sense, a woman is extremely vulnerable to this man. And so you've got to take care of me. Chuck Swindoll married off a daughter, and he said, it's like giving a Stradivarius into the hands of a gorilla. All right. And so, if you'll do that one right there, Ed, if you're tender, we can eliminate the other 16. We're there. You've done it. All the other ones are just sub-points of what tenderness is. Number 2. Y'all feel pretty bad already? Lloyd, shall I continue? All right. Number 2. Peter said, live with your wives in an understanding way as with a weaker vessel, and grant her, anybody know what the text says? Honor. Grant her honor as a fellow heir, that this is not a lesser human. This is a fellow heir in the grace of life, that there is neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor freeman, male nor female, that in the grace of life, this is your equal. And it says in Genesis 5, male and female created he them, and he named them Adam. Isn't that a strange verse? He named them Adam, that they are equal. And that's why you take Eve out of the body of Adam. Adam, you make him from the dirt. Eve, you take her from the body of Adam. And Adam knows this one is my equal. She is bone of my bone. Now, obviously, there are differences in the home. There is God over the husband, who is over the wife, over the children. In the church, you have leadership that is done by the men. But as far as their stance in life, that there is an equality on who they are. And so you grant her honor. Whenever you see the fall come in Genesis 3, the part of the curse is that the woman, your desire will be for your husband, which simply means it's the same word used over a chapter later in Genesis 4 when it says, Cain, sin is crouching at your door and its desire is for you, but you must master it. It's the idea of dominating something. And so in the fall, he says to the woman, your desire will be for your husband, but he will rule over you. I asked my wife once, I said, does this mean that you have an innate desire to control me and rebel? And she said to me, do you like paying taxes? I said, I beg your pardon. She said, do you enjoy submitting to the government? Do you like going 65 miles an hour? I said, I've never gone 65 miles an hour. She said, if you did, would you like doing it? And I said, no, I would not. You don't like authority. She said, because you're a child of the devil, all right? And you don't like authority. She said, I don't like authority. I'm a sinner. And no, I don't enjoy always having to submit to you, all right? And she said to me, and that is why I am told 3 times in the New Testament to submit to you whether I like it or not. Because if God doesn't tell me, I won't do it. She said, that's why my parents had to beat me. And that's why teachers had to put me in detention. And that's why that I would like to buy a radar detector, but I know it's unchristian. So she said, no, I don't like authority. And she said, you don't either, but I have to submit to you. That's what God tells me to do. And then it says, your desire shall be for your husband, but he shall rule over you. That is not a good word, because part of the fall is, instead of an intuitive sense of Adam and Eve, which they had, there were no commands on submission or authority in the original, because they both know God made Adam first, he's the leader, Eve second, she's the follower, but from his body, he is tender toward her. And so there was this gracious love and respect to take care of this person, to honor this person. After the fall, they got alienated from God, and they got alienated from each other. Because when you're in sin, what's the only thing in the world you're in tune with? Yourself. And so, woman, your desire, you're going to wreck your home. And husband, you're going to rule. You are, and that probably has the idea that you are going to abuse this woman. And so that's what happened to marriage ever since, that you have rogue males and you have man-eaters. And you have all kind of problems in marriage. The neat thing is that in God and through his son, Jesus Christ, that God redeems marriage back to where it should be. Husbands, love your wives as Christ. Aha, eureka. Wives, be subject to your husband as the church is to Christ. In the Old Testament, God is pictured as the husband to the nation of Israel. Okay? And so, whether it be the Old Testament or whether it be the New Testament, one of the beauties is whenever a person comes to Christ, they are now reunited with God and reconciled to God. And then they look around and they are now reconciled to their home. Amen? Now homes change. And then you find out you're reconciled to your children. You know now how to treat them in a loving way. And then you're reconciled to your fellow man. You don't end up being prejudiced, bigoted, and hateful and murderous to your fellow man. So God reconciles everything back to himself. Before you get that touch, you see men like trees walking. When he touches you, everything is seen clearly. Are y'all with me? And so a man is to honor his wife, okay? One time I was doing marriage counseling, and I had this guy that was in there, and he had this arrogant attitude. I was asking about where they thought the fundamental problems might come. Somebody had told this guy at some time in his life he was smart and didn't do him a favor. And his wife was a nurse, and it's hard to take all those courses and get to be a nurse. She was a nurse. And he would sit there and he would go, well, you know, one of the fundamental problems we have is I'm intellectually far more superior than her. Women love to hear that. And as a result, she cannot enter into discussions with me as I'm used to with many of my compatriots and my fellow students. And I'm looking at her, and she's kind of forcing a smile, all right? And he'll make these little condescending remarks on how brilliant he is, you know. And I know he's brilliant because he told me that he was brilliant, okay? And what he liked to do was put his arm around this girl. He put this big sweaty hook around her, you know, while he's talking about what he is. And I can just tell after a while, she takes his hand and moves it off. And what I did was I kept saying to her, what do you think about this, that you married a mental giant and you pretty much, you know, missed the boat? What do you think about that? And I got him into a fight. And I played the devil right here. I just kept stoking that fire. They busted up. Glory be to God. And he went and married some other brilliant person that could put up with him, all right? Yeah, but his problem was his continual dishonoring of this woman, all right? So tenderness, honor, and now let's spread them out a little bit, okay? Number 3 is appreciation, to where you, let me just ask you, with a great wife and a great mother and a great homekeeper, homemaker, and a great character in the home, does that get lauded and esteemed in our culture? It doesn't. All the superficial things do. And so if a woman's going to get that hormone that she doesn't produce by herself, that the husband provides for her, that is called esteem, okay, it's going to have to come from the man, because our culture won't do that. And so the appreciation means, like Proverbs 31, many daughters have done nobly, but you excel them all. And he says that in the gates of the city. He is openly, publicly honoring of this woman. Let me tell you, guys, where you get what is the death statement. If you ever make this statement, you're a dead man. And y'all are both single girls, isn't that right? Good. I'm so glad you're right here. Okay. Whenever you hear a guy say this, you turn and you flee. When you hear him say, listen, I make the money in this family. When he says that, you turn and run, because you just say to him, well, how about I'll just quit taking care of this home and cooking, and then we'll see how well you do. That is why when a woman dies and a man is a widower, he will get married in about an hour. You ever notice that? Because he's sitting in his own filth and he's hungry. Where do you get that toilet paper? My house stinks. A woman, when the guy dies, she's like a cat. She can live forever. You know, it's like life is a lot easier with this guy gone. Are you girls with me? All right. Number 4, so appreciation. You just stop periodically, fellows, and you just put your arms around her and you say, thank you for taking care of this home and taking care of me. And if you ever have your child that treats your wife in a condescending way, because this is the first place that a kid will rebel, is against the smaller of the two rulers, against the woman. Guys, if you ever have your kid condescend upon her and not respect her and work with her and help her in the keeping of that home, you need to put him down like old Yeller right there, all right? You do whatever you got to do, but you never let your kid do that to your wife. Number 4, a woman needs provision. Can a woman work outside the home? Yes, Proverbs 31, if there's an understanding that she has a priority to care for that home. Does a man have the option of not working? What do you think, Ben Hughes? No, he does not. A man is to work by the sweat of his brow and then die young. She takes his insurance, marries a younger man, and goes to Cabo. All right, that's the way it is. But that's why if I go speak to an old folks' home, you speak to 30 sharp little women and one guy who's not sure where he is. All right. And so men work, they die early. A woman does the man like the Apache would do his horse. You put him down and get a new one. But that's the way it is. All right. We take care of them until we die. But our job is to work. Women have a problem with men who sit on the couch and do not work. They have a problem with men that are lazy. And so a man's, even if he is between jobs, he needs to do whatever he has to do to take care of things. So a man has to work. Put this down, number 5. A woman has to have security. Women don't do well with fear when there is not a protector. In the Jewish home, whenever you have a wedding, you don't exchange rings. You know what the man does? He takes off his coat and he puts it over the woman. It's called coming under his wing. He puts it over her. And that's the idea. You remember in the book of Ruth, she proposes to Boaz and says, cover your maid. It means that the man is to care for her, that she doesn't have to worry. He will love, honor, cherish, and provide for her. Whenever a woman has a husband who flirts, whenever a woman has a husband who keeps pictures of his former girlfriends, whenever a woman has a man that in any way has an eye outside that home, women don't do well with that. Linda, can I get an amen? Not that you would know what I'm talking about. But they don't. They don't do well with that. When a woman, here's one, how would you like to be a woman and have your husband openly bringing pornography into the home? And now you're competing with pornography. Women don't do well with that. They get unnerved, as they should. Or to deal with a man who periodically will explode in anger and cover you with shrapnel, and then want to act like nothing has happened. And you're living with this bomb that will go off. Or if a man uses sarcasm to get his way. And so women have to be secure that everything else may fall apart in this world, but this man is there for me. That's why I always tell men whenever you get married, look, I say marriage is a varsity sport. It is not for the B team. You have to be excellent in your commitment to a standard and your effort as a man to get married. Some men, girls, you too. What is your name, dear? Kelly. Your name? Pray for Kelly and Michelle. All right. My 2 token single girls here. Some men can never be married. Just remember that. There's some men that can't be married because they don't have the ability to treat someone in a deferential way. That is an attribute that is found in God. And a man has to be at that place before he can get married. Are you with me, Ben Hughes? When's your wedding day coming? Could we put the camera on Ben Hughes right here just a second? All right. But you earn the right to be married. A man has to rightly relate to God, and then he can relate to a wife. Adam doesn't get Eve first. Adam gets God. And once Adam knows God, Now Adam gets Eve. Eve doesn't get Adam first. Eve gets God, and then Eve gets Adam. So marriage is not meant for atheists, and it's not meant for disobedient people. They don't do well, okay? Number 6, a woman is the crown of her husband. What does a crown need, Joe Calfee? How about a king? Not polishing, Joe, but that's good. All right. A crown needs a king, that a woman needs a point of pride. She needs a man who is a man of good reputation. She doesn't need a man who does, we have had women come to me in my church here, and they have said, my husband smokes marijuana. And I say, hey, this is not Colorado. You can't do that. That is illegal. But yet she is, and if you will smoke marijuana, you will sell marijuana. And she becomes very unnerved by that, as she should. Or a woman, I had a dear friend whose wife kept noticing that there were things that they owned that they had bought from her husband's company's credit card. We have a word for that. It's called thievery. And she came to her husband and said, what are you doing here? And he tried to explain it away. He said, that's illegal. What do you think she did? She went to the higher authorities and she turned him in. You know why? She could not live with that activity in her home. And so a woman has to have a man that she is not ashamed to bear his name. Number 7, a woman has to have leadership. The idea that women do not want strong men is a myth. What was her name? Gloria Steinem. Y'all remember that name? One of the leaders of the feminist movement. She said back in the 70s, we women have finally become the men we always wanted to marry. That they were strong. No woman prays, oh God, send me a weak man. Oh God, send me a wimp. Give me a limpid one. Oh, please. Now, they're not looking for an abusive man, but they're looking for a man who knows who he is, who knows who God is, who knows right, who knows wrong, and will rule like Adam is called to rule. There is a book that came out years ago called Passive Men, Wild Women. And the author said a lot of women are not rebellious, they're just mad because they get guys that out there, they're in the business world, they are strong, they hit it, and then they come home and spiritually they are just passive. And no woman wants that. They want a fellow who has leadership to him. There's if you get time, go on the internet and look up Norman Rockwell. And there's a particular painting that he did. He would do a painting for Saturday Evening Post every month, I think. And there is a painting of a woman who is going to church. She's got her prayer book. It's back in the 50s. She's got her white gloves, and she just looks so pretty, and she's heading to church. And her face, her nose is in the air in contempt, because over here, sitting in a chair, is her husband slumped down with the paper on Sunday morning. And he's got his cigarette and he's got his coffee right here. And he's looking at the sports page and he's slumped down in the chair and he's not going and leading the family. And you see this woman with her nose in the air in disdain, and following her with her nose in the air is her little daughter. She disdains him too. And behind him, no matter of fact, there's 2 little twin daughters, and both of them have their nose in the air like their mother because they disdain this father who will not lead the family. And at the back is a little boy, and he's got his little Spanky McFarland hat on, and he's got his little prayer book. They must be Episcopals, all right, they're heading to church. And he's looking at his father like this. What's that look say, Linda? What are you doing? It's confusion. You're the leader. You're staying here. Mama has to take control. And so it's a confused boy. Women want a man that reads his Bible, who leads the family in prayer, who goes to church and doesn't sit there like a mildewed fig, all right, who sings at the top of his lungs. They want a leader, all right. Number 8 is a woman needs development. She does not ever want to think, what could I have been if I had just not married him? Y'all remember that Glenn Campbell song? You girls know who Glenn Campbell is? Thank you. I feel old right here. Warren Nystrom, you remember Glenn Campbell? Yes, you remember his father. Yes. Glenn Campbell, remember the song he wrote? These are the dreams of the everyday housewife who gave up the good life for me. No woman wants to ever think that. A man needs, what has Christ done for us? Does Christ lessen what we are? He doesn't. He brings it out. And a man has to look at his wife and say, who is this hand that God has dealt me? What can she do? What's she good at? Decorating? Is she good at, I don't know. My wife, she gets a new passion about every hour, you know. And you know what? I throw money at it. She got a kick one time. That's why she's not here, okay. She got on a kick of photography, all right. Man, I bought her a dark room. Anybody want to buy it? Because I've got it right now. I'll sell it to you, all right. She got caught up once with chickens, all right. We bought 30 chickens, and then we built the coop, and then we did all that. And all the bobcats in the area went, hallelujah. Everything loves chickens, all right. And then she got into antiques. Would you like some antiques? I got some antiques for you. But I said, let's go get some antiques. If they throw it out, let's pay good money for it, all right. And if she ever wants to go to Oxford, I'm going to get her a ticket to London, all right? And so my wife has never, ever felt, boy, I wonder what I could have been if it hadn't have been for him, for this sucker and feeder who latched onto me and sucked all the life out of me. No, I'm always looking, what would you like? I said to her one time, why don't we collect money? Okay. Are you with me, Ben? What's your future? What's Kim like? What is she like, Ben? What is she really good at? Serving people. Something else. That's too spiritual. Give me something. Does she like hang gliding? Does she like kung fu? What does she like? Like what? You let her craft. You get her gift certificates to Michael's. Are they bankrupt yet? Oh, okay. You buy her gift certificates. You build her a crafting room, all right? And you let her be what she wants to be. Warren, did Ina like being a nurse? She was a great nurse. Warren made sure she was a great nurse. And y'all were able to balance that, all right? It's her working, but she was a great nurse. You find what your wife can be, and you let her be it, okay? Number 9, a woman needs support with the kids. Because the Bible says that women are saved through the bearing of children, meaning their purpose. It's in 1 Timothy 2. Women's purpose is saved through the bearing of children. If they, plural word, mother and children, continue in faith, love, sanctity with self-restraint. That a woman is the great mother. And so early on especially, that mother feeds that child. That mother gave life to that child. She went through that child drawing off of her life. Why do women have particular strange, what do you call them? Things to eat when they're pregnant. What do you call that? Cravings. Yeah. My wife always wanted to smell Vaseline. Well, Linda, what was something weird you wanted? McDonald's hamburger. My wife always wanted to smell Vaseline or gasoline. Yeah, and that's why my sons can't do long divisions today. Because they got brain damage prenatal, yeah. But why is that? Why does that woman have, Ann, what'd you want? Go ahead, let's hear it. Peppermint ice cream. Penny Wooten liked pickle snow cones. Pickle juice snow cones. Who knows? But that's because that kid is leeching off of them. They got an alien that is growing in there, and they want different things. That's what keeps Gene Gumphrey, who runs Sonic, alive as women going through cravings that have to have foot-long conies. All right. And so, and then she breastfeeds, and then that child takes her life. And so that's why stir-gain love is a mother's love. We get the word stork, all right? The mama's love, stork, from stir-gain love. And so a woman has that intimacy with that child. Well, as that child grows up, does that child get to where he'll rebel first against mama? He will. And that's where the father because there comes a time at about 10 years of age, the child can physically take on the mother. And the father has to stand and go, no, that's not going to happen. You need the ogre to step in and say, that won't happen here. And to do it lovingly, but to let them know that won't happen. So she needs support. Do kids try to divide and conquer? Yes, they do, because they're of the devil. All right? And they know how to worm in there. And mama gives them trouble, and so the little girl crawls up on daddy's lap. Divide and conquer. What has the daddy got to do, Jerry? No, you're not going to crawl up on my lap. You're going to go get straight with mother. All right, and here's mama sitting there, 6'7", looking down at her. You go get straight with mama, then you crawl on my lap. See. Number 10, a woman needs a father for her children. I had a woman tell me one time her major function in the home was to make certain her children did not emulate their father. She said, that is the greatest threat to my home, is the anger of this man. And so she has to have involvement. You know, they say that this happened historically during the Industrial Revolution. Prior to that, in the mid-1800s, America was rural. All of a sudden it became urban and factory, not the fields, but the factory. And that men were now, they no longer would go to the fields and then come back in for lunch and go out with their children. They left the family and they went to the factory. And you had, not a politically correct term, but you had white slavery, basically, that they were now underneath this thing that could use them and throw them away. And men began now to come home exhausted, and the home was now officially turned over to the mother. And now it became, for a man to be a man of the home and a man that was involved when the children came to be seen as effeminate. And the woman was involved with the religious instruction of the kids now, because the father was gone, usually, until about 6, 7 o'clock, had come home exhausted. And so now spiritual things came to be regarded as feminine. And that happened in the 1800s. And we've never recovered from it. Matter of fact, Tom Sawyer said in one of his books that Aunt Polly was trying to womanize him, trying to get him to church, trying to womanize me. And so a man has to be counterculture and go back into that home and get his hands on those kids and pour into those kids. What I did, I had a guy tell me early on in my life, men, he said, Ben Hughes, you listen to this when them kids come. He said, you be the one that prays at your meal. And he said, you pray intelligent prayers. You pray and you thank a sovereign God for his mercies and the the stewardship he gives to man in this world, providing for him and man's. He said, you pray like a Calvinist with your kids. And then he said, when you put them to bed at night, he said, you put your hands on them and you hear them talk to God about you. And he said, you let them feel your hands blessing them. He said, this guy said to me, are you affectionate? I said, no. I grew up with my father who worked in a bomb factory. I had 3 brothers. There was no affection in our home. He said, start. Whatever you got to do, you start. He said, you put your hands on those kids. Especially, he said, that little girl needs to always feel the arms, the normative arms of a loving male. And she always needs to recognize what isn't the normative arms of love in her life. Put your hands on your kids. And he said, you bless them at night and you bless them. You learn to hug them. And I did. And I had 2 boys. Both of them put Kevlar on and go shoot people. That's their jobs. One's in the Secret Service, one's a Fort Worth cop. You ever tried to put your arms around a cop, And, I'd hug them till they got about, have you discovered that when they hit about 12 years old, it's not cool anymore? And they don't want to be hugged. So what do is you wrestle and you beat them up. You keep your hands on them, see? And you do this. I still do that, and they're 42 years old. Number 11, a woman needs affection. When I say affection, I mean non-sexual touching. See, a woman wants her husband to be affectionate. She'll be affectionate with him, but all of a sudden he becomes Thumper the Rabbit, and says, hey, here we go, baby. No, she wants non-sexual touching, all right, to where you simply are affectionate with her for the sake of affection. Okay. A woman needs, put this down, number 12. You affectionate, Ben? You affectionate? You're an offensive lineman from SMU. Are you affectionate? To a certain point? Change, all right? Number 12, that'll be $50, all right? You have to change. You got to become affectionate. I'm not affectionate. Change. You're about to become affectionate. You don't have the right not to be. You will change. Okay. Put down number 12. And I used to wonder about this. A woman needs sex. I used to read 1 Corinthians 7, and it says, a man does not have authority over his own body, but the woman does. And I thought, that was a waste of ink. I can't tell you how many times in my marriage, Teresa screamed at me from the bedroom, get in here, Tom. I will have my way with you. No, yes, get in there. Skin them britches, you little tadpole. No, that didn't happen. But I think there was once in 82, 76. Just kidding. No, I've had that happen. When I did the Song of Solomon conferences, I had more times than I can tell you that I would talk on Song of Solomon, and a lady a lady would grab me and say, I really like sex. I like it a lot. Yeah, and my husband doesn't. And I went, huh? What? And I had to learn that. I had a guy come up to me one time. I was in Lynchburg, Virginia. All right. And at Jerry Falwell's place, of all places. And this guy came up and goes, Brother Tom, what if one of you in sex just is frankly a little bit more kinky than the other one, a little bit crazy? What do you do? And I said, hey, you don't need to push your wife where she doesn't want to go. He said, oh, it's her. And I said, idiot. I said, that's a prayer request. That's not a problem. I said, just suck it up. I mean, you get back into the conference and shut up. So let's move on. Number 13. A woman needs help around that home. Laura Schlesinger, y'all ever heard of her? She's a counselor. She said to me, the sound of my husband vacuuming is foreplay. That's good. You help. Brady, Brad, what do you do around the home that's a help to your wife? I'm one of the great dishwasher loaders in the history of the world. I'm a great dishwasher unloader. I got to be nervous. She likes it loaded a certain way. It has to line up with the cosmos and with the planets and stuff. There's a certain way you can. But I can empty it. Oh, all the time she's saying, don't break them dishes. But I can empty it. I'm a great vacuumer. I can Swiffer like a mug. Okay. I can make a bed. And it just to help out around the home, a woman needs help. Number 14, a woman needs freedom. You got that, Ben? Your wife needs freedom to be a girl, to head off. Does she like going to the gym, Ben? You get her a pass to the gym. Whatever and her just hanging out with her pals. Who's her best friend, Ben? You let her hang out with her and have fun with her. There's times my wife needs to go to one of them little tea shops that men never go to, out by the antique shops. And she goes there with girls and does her thing. And I say, go there, all right? And just enjoy being a woman. In the same way, a man at times needs to go just kill something, to hunt something. So you let him go do it. Number 15, a woman needs the freedom to keep the home, to spend money. The reason I say this, Jerry, I've had numbers of counseling appointments with men who feel that part of their manly duties is to be stringent and stingy. And somehow, if they will do a meticulous accounting for every nickel that goes, that is a good husband. And now I say that's treating your wife like she's an idiot. My wife and I have a deal that on whatever she needs in the home, she buys, all right, in the running of that home. If we get into something that costs more money, I have never, ever said, no, you can't spend that. But we just check in. It's good. If I'm going to buy some tires for the car, I need to just have the deference to say, I'm buying these. You never say, it's my money. It's our money. Ladies, amen? Take your shot right here, all right? And so it's our money. So whatever you need to spend it on, you spend it on, okay? But we just check in when there's something big. But a woman needs that freedom to care for the house. Number 16, a woman needs a listener. When she talks, a man has to listen. That's part of tenderness. Back in the old days, if a man's going to hustle a woman in a bar, how do you do it? Don't look at me like you don't know what I'm talking about. How do you hustle a woman in a bar? You find a woman with needs, and when she talks, what do? You listen. But you listen. The greatest thing in the world that you have is your opinion. That's your greatest thing. It comes out of your heart. And when that woman talks, then you turn and you listen. Y'all remember All in the Family? On one occasion, Edith was going on to Archie, on, and Archie was sitting behind her. And Archie, he goes, while she's talking, really bad taste. But men have been there before. I can explain things within about 3 seconds. I don't have a lot of east-west negotiation. I get to the point. My wife circles the runway. You know what I'm saying? And then at 3 o'clock I went out, and then I drove on down to the mall. And that's all right. And so I just stay with her. I have an idiot friend that he would do this with his wife. She'd be talking. Women love that, don't they? I was with another guy. You'd know who I'm talking about. We were out eating, and his wife was circling the runway, talking about stuff. And he's doing these stage whispers. Get to the point. Women love that. They just love to be treated that way. And number 17, your woman needs your heart. Ben, when you come in and Kim says to you, how was your day? You're exhausted. Most of us have about 2,500 words a day. By the time you get home, Ben, you are going to have blown about 2,300 of them. Well, she has saved up about 1,900, and she wants to talk. And so when you get home and she says, how's your day? You can't just sit and veg. Now, girls, you need to learn something. When your husband comes home, don't immediately meet him at the door with a disobedient child that's like a trout on the end of a line, all right? And say, Leonard, beat him. Beat him hard. All right, don't do that when he comes home. Stick something in his mouth. Okay, and just sit him down and let him transition job, home. Now, then you beat the child. All right, now. And so, Ben, when she says to you, how's your day? You stop and you talk. She wants your heart. Is that right, Linda? Yeah, she wants your heart. You pour your heart out, even if you're tired, and you let her know how your day was. I found early on, I was a quarterback. You got 30 seconds to call a play and get it off, or you get penalized. And so I moved quick. And I had this girl that loved to talk. You ever been shopping with your wife? I don't shop, I hunt. I know what I want, I go in, I ask the guy, I find it, and I'm gone. My wife, she doesn't shop, she shops. She loves to explore the aisles. I think that is what hell will be. I think hell will be a lot of aisles. But I had to learn when my wife talked to listen, not to multitask. One time she grabbed me early in marriage and jerked me like this. And she said, listen with your face. And I learned that. Well, all of these things are what it takes. Can I give you my favorite story about marriage? Gunther, we had a tape. Okay. Here's my favorite marriage story. I had a girl, a good buddy named Dave. He had a wife named Chris. And I was talking about marriage, about man being tender and a woman being respectful. She said, in our home, my grandparents were alienated from each other, and everybody knew they were alienated from each other. He lived on one side of the home, she lived on the other. They weren't supposed to divorce back in those days, so they didn't divorce. They just lived on opposite sides of the home. He took his vacation, she took hers, and we all knew grandma and grandpa don't socialize. They just don't like each other. That's the way it is. So we knew that. And they got into their 70s. Until one day, grandma came down with a tumor on her spine. And it was stage whatever, and it was inoperable. And it was painful. And there was nothing that she could do. They did what they could, and now they just waited. And she had her bedroom, he had hers. And she said, my grandfather was walking by the bedroom, and he heard noise come out of it. Oh. And just as a good Samaritan, he just stopped. Opened the door. Are you okay? No. She said, I have these back spasms, and they just don't turn loose. He said, can I do anything? Could you come in here and rub this thing out? Okay. So he's in his skivvies. She's sleeping there. And so he just goes in there and, you've done this, and just work that knot out on her back. Oh, that feels better. Sure? Okay. Thank you. Okay. The next night, you okay? Yeah, better, but still hurts. Well, they got a regimen that he would come in at night. He'd ask how she was doing, and he would rub out her back. And she got appreciative and she knew if he was going to sit there, she needed to be conversant and to be kind. And so she was appreciative to this guy that served her. And so she would just talk, and as they would do, they would start talking about Dave and Chris and their kids and the other kids, and they start talking about the government and start talking about the whatever. And so they would have conversations over back rubs, okay? And so that began their regimen. of he coming in there. And it was the first time they had ever had any kind of fellowship since they were like in high school. All right. But there, he would work out those muscles. And then one night she said, you know, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night just scared. Yeah. She said, could you sleep in here? Well, okay. And sure enough, she'd wake just scared. And what he would do is he would take her and he would hold her until she'd go back to sleep. And that got to be their regimen. Massage, get scared, and hold her. And she got to being very appreciative. And then this girl, Chris, said she got to being amorous. And he got to responding, and she said, you know what? My grandparents fell in love. After 60 years of marriage somewhat, they fell in love because of stage 4 cancer. And he said she ended up going to the end and she died. And he was so deeply affected by her death that he died a short while later. He said they died like high school kids that were in love. They had to learn by the end of their life that nothing is more amorous than a servant. And they served each other. Isn't that a good story? Best to learn it now. Father, thank you for the time that you give us in your word. And I'm not any of these things always, but I can be all of them sometimes and struggle with them always at a right standard. Great Christians are great Christians because of their continual faithful struggling at the right things. And that's all we want from each other, for us to all ascend to something that is bigger than us. And that is the essence of maturity. Go with us now. In Jesus' name, amen.